quarterback battle. Kaidon Salter obviously going into his 5th year, and then Julian Lewis. We know how talented he is. Now, how do you feel about this quarterback battle now that you're seeing it up close in person? Does Julian Lewis have a real shot at maybe possibly starting year one? Is it Kaidon Salter's job? How do you feel about the quarterback battle now that you've seen it in person?
I think the fact that we even call it a battle is a win for Julian. Because when you talk about a guy who was up for National Player of the Year consideration a little over a year ago, we're talking about a 17-year-old actually competing with the guy who's beating Power 4 teams and who's been a 4-star himself. He was a top 50 player. So for him to be able to compete, and I think that's a victory for Julian. But also the fact that Julian is making accurate throws, he's showing his cerebral nature. He's not the moment isn't too big. He's standing up in the pocket. He's climbing the pocket and make throws and making throws off schedule and off target, off platform as well. So I think Julian has shown a lot. With all that being said, Kaidon Salter is still Kaidon Salter. I think there's a lot to be said about how well he throws the deep ball. His athleticism has been on display. Today, I got to see them run a little more speed option, which I think is going to the more they run speed option, the more that's going to favor Kaidon Salter, who you have to give the nod to when it comes to athleticism. So I think just based on what the scheme is, if you want to go dink and dunk, I do think Julian Lewis will probably be the guy. If you're just going to air it out, you need short routes, intermediate routes. I think he would be the guy. But if you want to take some chances, if you want to utilize the run game from the quarterback position and take some chances deep, I think Kaidon Salter would be the guy. So I think just depending on what Coach Sherman wants to do offensively is going to probably dictate who wins the job.
Absolutely. And interesting. Now, I got 2 questions for you. I'll ask you about Salter in a second, but you mentioned both of their strengths. Is there a possibility that CU uses both quarterbacks going into this season? Is that a possibility?
I could see that. I 1,000% see a role where maybe you start K-Salt and you let Julian get his feet wet and some packages. Or vice versa. Maybe you let Julian come out and start the game like a starter, and you let K-Salt come in and kind of throw some things off and make the defense. I mean, imagine how tough it would be to prepare for 2 quarterbacks and 2 quarterbacks who do have those who don't have similar skill sets. Even though they do some of the same things well, I think they both throw the deep ball well. And I think I saw Salter throw some pretty nice deep outs today. He's got a cannon. Like he does that. I don't think I really recognized how strong his arm was until I saw it in person. But I'll say this: they're so talented. You got to find a way. Even if it's Jude, you got to find a way for Salter to get a package and vice versa because of the amount of talent. So I do see a world where that could happen.
Absolutely. And so let's focus on Salter. Obviously, experience going into his 5th year, coming from Liberty, 4-year starter, threw for over 5,000 yards, rushed for 2,000 yards at Liberty. Let me ask you, what is his potential as a starter? He seems pretty excited to be taking the reins from Shedeur. What do you think about his potential as CU starter going into this season?
Yeah, I think he can win 10 games with everything that's around him. I think that when you look at the Big 12, there isn't a boogeyman there. There isn't the UGA. There isn't the Texas. There are a lot of teams that have done well in the portal. I mean, you look at what Texas Tech has done, but when you have to replace the production that they had from their quarterback, who's now graduated, I forgot his name. Was it Tyler? Was it Tyler Shough? I think.
Yeah. Shook.
Yeah. So when you look at what they have to replace, and you go up and down the Big 12, UCF has a new coaching staff. I mean, TCU is looking to do some things, but I mean, Baylor won 8 games last year. I mean, there isn't a juggernaut in the entire conference. Even when you look at Arizona State losing Scatterbo, I mean, you go up and down the list. That boogeyman isn't there. So with that being said, I think that Colorado can capitalize. And with a guy like Salter, he's a guy who we've seen play well in big games. And another thing that I would say about him is his confidence is on another level. And you want a quarterback who believes he can get it done. Puts action to it. So I think his potential is out of the roof. And I think that if you can get their run game working and start taking shots and dial them up with the receivers that you have, and I think they will be getting some more guys in the portal. I'm sure of it. So I think with everything that Colorado presents as an opportunity for Salter. If he seizes the moment, which I think he will, I think his potential is at least 10 wins.
Yeah, man, that makes me excited. Now, before we move on, talking some bigger topics, you mentioned the run game. That's something that obviously Matt and I have harped on for the past year. Going into this season, obviously they brought in Andre Gerard to go along with George Hageman and Gunnar White, and the offensive line, Marshall Faulk, running back coach. How's that running game looking? Are you optimistic? Are we going to see some more looks, different looks this season? What about the run game? Go ahead.
I think the run concepts are going to be just as good, if not, I think they'll be better. I think there's going to be more of a focus on it. And I think no matter who is at the helm when it comes to correction and teaching technique, you got three guys who you trust. And I think one of the best technicians in that room is Gunner. I think me being able to be privy to some of those conversations and looking at how he communicates, I think he's an excellent offensive line coach. Also, when you look at Andre, look at Dre, and you look at Big George, that room is a three-headed monster. And I think they're going to introduce some things, even as far as what they want to do, as far as getting their guys playing more intuitive and not thinking as much. Those are simple things that provide large dividends when it comes to offensive linemen. So I think, and the amount of synergy the offensive line room has with the running back room, how much time they spend together, I think that's only going to help the running game. And they just going to call more runs. I think now with Shedeur being gone, when you have the best quarterback in the nation, you put the ball in his hands. Now you have two guys in an unfamiliar situation who you're going to need to lean on the run game. So with that being said, I think I saw some improvement. I like what I saw today. I think Dallin Hayden's going to have a big year. I also think Michael Welch has a ton of production. A ton of potential. But I think Dallin Hayden's going to be one of those guys, man.
Man, that makes me excited to hear that. Going back to the offensive line real quick, I think George Hageman and them bringing in Gerard, I think it's going to be huge for Jordan Seaton's development. How do you feel about Jordan Seaton going into this season? Do you think he can become the best left tackle of college football?
He can, man. First one in, first one out. It's not even what he does on the field, it's what he does off the field. Like, get there early, see him, leave. He shouldn't even still be in the building, but he's there just on the training table, just like, preemptive work. Like he's phenomenal. When you see him coaching his peers as a peer coach, a real leader, I think he's going to grow into that leadership role even more this year. When you look at the amount of time that he spent with Shedeur last year, some of that rubbed off on him. And as far as being probably, when you think about it, he's probably the most draftable guy on that roster. So I think he's going to step more and more into that role as a leader. And I think the sky's the limit for him. And whether he stays 3 or 4 years, he has the potential to be the first tackle off the board.
Man, that makes me excited. I believe that. I absolutely think, like I mentioned, I think his development going into the season, him being a real leader on that offensive line. We saw last season him as a true freshman. He was leading out there, man. And he's the young guy. That made me excited going into this season. I think his development is going to be take him to that best left tackle in college football and get him a high draft pick for sure. Well, let's move forward. Let's talk about this.